Howard 100 News presents Lieberman Live. Now, here's your host, John Lieberman. Howard 101. Here's John.
And indeed, we do have breaking news. George Zimmerman, yes, that George Zimmerman, arrested today, being held without bail in Seminole County, Florida. Here's what we know, and then I'll tell you what we don't know. We know that shortly before 1:30 today, George Zimmerman, who, as you know, was acquitted in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman, shortly before 1:30 today, arrested at the home of his girlfriend. We understand the girlfriend claims she is pregnant, though that has not been confirmed. We also know that George Zimmerman was arrested on domestic violence charges, and that's why he's being held on no bail right now. You see that suspects in Seminole County, Florida, all domestic violence suspects are held without bail until they make an initial appearance. So you can't necessarily read into the fact that he's being held without bail, read anything about the severity of the charges, except that we know it was some sort of domestic violence incident. Police are expected to release the 911 call connected to this incident, and there is one. And they're also expected to release the police report in this incident, and there is one, very shortly. Of course, George Zimmerman has had a number of run-ins with the law since that acquittal in the Trayvon Martin case. He's been stopped for speeding a couple times. He had a gun in his glove compartment at one point. He was accused by his estranged wife of a domestic incident, though never charged in that case. I want to bring in my panel now. First, I want to begin with attorney Richard Roth. But first, Richard, let me start with you. You heard what we know at this point. What do you make of it?
You know, this is more of George Zimmerman being George Zimmerman. It's unfortunate that this is really becoming news, but it is because of the Trayvon Martin killing. It is news, and we know that it seems like a lot of people are leaving him. His girlfriend doesn't like him anymore and is making charges against him. Apparently, Mark O'Mara, his lawyer at the time, is now leaving him. He's engaged in nothing less than stupid incidences, speeding twice. That happens, but concealing a weapon, it's just stupidity, nothing short of that. And then this new brush with the law, potentially, attempting to harm or harming his girlfriend. It's just more the same.
And what gets me, and King of All Blacks, I want to bring you into this conversation. What gets me is this. George Zimmerman is in almost the exact same area as when all of this unfolded with Trayvon Martin. He hasn't left the area at all. Everybody knows who he is. And though these are simply allegations at this point, you would think, coming off an acquittal of a murder, that you would keep a low profile. George Zimmerman, King, has done anything but.
Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I hear a phone ringing in the background.
First of all, wait a second. Oh, I'm not in the whack pack. That's my first statement. And my second statement is that George Zimmerman is guilty of murder. He was guilty of murder, and the reason why he got off is because, quite frankly, he was white.
Well, King, let me just make a clarification. Zimmerman, in the court of law, was not found guilty. He was, in fact, acquitted. Now, you can argue that an acquittal doesn't necessarily mean he didn't do it. You can argue that, and many have, but in a court of law, when charged with murder in his murder case, he was indeed acquitted, King.
So when O.J. Simpson got acquitted of murder, they didn't let it go. They to this day they call him a murderer, don't they?
Well, no, they call him an accused murderer. He was never actually a convicted murderer.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when people talk about O.J. these days, up to today, they say, oh, O.J. he killed Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman. They don't say he got acquitted in a court of law and all. They don't say that. They just call him a murderer. I know that, and I know why. It's it's quite clear to me why. Doesn't bother me, but I know why.
Yeah, King, this is Richard Roth. They do say that he was only accused, and he did get off. He was found guilty in a civil lawsuit brought by the plaintiffs, which was Nicole Brown, the estate of Nicole Brown. But he actually got off. But he, you got to put Zimmerman in the same category as Casey Anthony. Casey Anthony.
Casey
right?
Anthony. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. She was in Florida. The allegations were that she killed her little baby. And she was an accused. I mean, listen, it's one thing. I agree with you, King. It's one thing whether they did it or didn't do it. It's another thing proving guilt. It's very hard to prove guilt. And so he may very well have done it, but they just couldn't meet their burden.
888-STERN-101, 888-783-7610. We want to hear from you on Lieberman Live about George Zimmerman. And just to recap, he is in custody on no bail right now in Seminole County, Florida, in connection with a domestic violence incident against his apparently pregnant girlfriend, though that hasn't completely been confirmed yet. King, go ahead.
Yeah, that's that. Now, to go to another point is when the attorney said that O.J. lost in the civil trial. Now, that's my beef with black people. When things happen to them, they go marching. They praise the Lord and ask the Lord to punish the guy and all that. One thing they don't do is they don't go after people civilly. They always forgive too quick, and that's a big beef I have with the black community. They love to forgive. After about a couple of weeks, they get episodic. Couple of weeks after, it goes back to business as usual.
Asnap Gannett, I want to bring you into the conversation, and we're going to talk death penalty in a little bit. And I know, Ed, you have some interesting views on the death penalty. But as somebody who's been communicating via postcard with an actual convicted murderer, Jodi Arias, and I've seen the postcards, Ed, what do you make of the George Zimmerman situation?
He killed his wife or something? He should be... They should give him the death penalty then.
No, Ed. He has not killed anybody in this latest situation. He is behind bars right now, accused in a domestic violence incident. We don't know the severity yet, but we do know that the alleged victim is alive. Your thoughts?
Okay, then we have to take him through a trial. That's what we got to do first before we can give him any kind of penalties.
Well, exactly, Richard. I mean, he's going to go in front of a judge for his initial appearance, and a judge at that point is either going to set bail or let him go because there's not enough. And you know, Richard, from doing these cases, at issue is going to be if the alleged victim, part of it is, does the alleged victim want to cooperate? They can still go forward with charges without her cooperation, but doesn't that make it so much more difficult?
Absolutely. You really need her cooperation.
Yeah, because, can I just say something real
Go ahead,
quick?
King.
Now, that's a big problem, too. With domestic allegations, woman on man, or usually man on woman, the problem is that it's not the man's first time abusing his wife or girlfriend. Now, I'm not condoning domestic violence, but after a couple of times, I do blame the woman. I really do.
How do you blame the victim, King?
Because if a woman is in a relationship with her husband, her boyfriend, whoever, a lot, and I'm not saying all women, but a lot of women tolerate their men hitting them, and then that third time where he did it too hard or something like that, they call the police. And when the police come, they don't want to press charges. Why? Because they love them. Now,
well, there's a mixture. Why? The part of the why is that they're living in fear, and they're afraid that if they do press charges, then how can you say that that's not one reason why?
No, because listen. They always say, I have nowhere to go. That's bullshit. I know girls that got family, brothers, cousins, everything. But they will not admit that they love this man and everything that comes with him. Everything. the right hook, the left hook, the sex, everything. They love it.
King, have you ever hit a woman?
Years ago, yes, I have. I was abusive boyfriend and husband years ago, and I'm not like that anymore.
And did she stay because she was scared of you or because she loved you?
Because she loved me. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. If you want to get an education on that, look at Maury. Look at all of these shows where they talk. This guy is no good. Maury builds this guy up to be no good. And when they find out that they have the baby by the guy, he's the father, they jump up for joy.
Josh in Tennessee, you're live. Josh.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
Oh, not a whole lot. Listen, I'm a police officer down here in Tennessee. What he's saying is ridiculous about women. It's the women's fault. I mean, listen, I've been on thousands and thousands of domestic violence cases. It is not the woman's fault. You're right, John. They're living in fear. It's not the women. I mean, they can only do so much.
Well, Josh, I appreciate you calling in to Lieberman Live because let me tell you this. I sit on the board of the National Domestic Violence Registry, and I can tell you firsthand experience, having talked to hundreds of victims of domestic violence, almost to a T, King, they are afraid to leave.
So let me ask you a question. Listen, I know what I'm saying is not politically correct, but here in New Jersey, I no longer live in New Jersey, but in New Jersey, they've been on these domestic, police come to these homes so much, and the women do not press charges for whatever reason. Now they have a law that they could proceed without her cooperation. Why? Because the minute they get back to the station, they're in the bed together having sex.
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but Richard, talk about why many jurisdictions, not all, but many have sort of these laws in place where the state's attorney, the district attorney can go forward with charges even if the victim doesn't wish to cooperate.
Yeah, and the reason
I'm right.
And the reason is, King, there's a lot you've said that is not right, but the one thing you are right about is the women can't get out. It's a battered wife syndrome. There's love. There's a lot of reasons why they feel like they can't leave. So the prosecutors, some states have actually enacted laws to allow them to go forward to assist that woman. We don't necessarily all agree with you on whether or not it's the woman's fault. That's something I vehemently do not agree with. However, because they are in such difficult situations and they're in trauma and they're getting beaten, there are laws, which I do agree with you on, to assist in the prosecution of these defendants, of these men who beat women, even if the women are not going to cooperate. And that's very helpful.
Zach in Pittsburgh, you're live with Lieberman. Zach.
I love King, man. But seriously, the George Zimmerman case I thought was ridiculous. And would you agree that the media really was biased on this one?
Biased against who?
Of only showing pictures of him when he was 12 years old. And I was waiting to see a picture of him, just a sperm there. It was ridiculous. NBC editing the tapes.
Are you kidding me?
Have you heard the actual 911 tapes, not the edited tapes?
Yeah, we heard them in the trial, and that was one thing that I believe, in part, led to the acquittal of George Zimmerman.
I know another thing that led to the acquittal.
What?
What led to I always find it fascinating that when I hear a cop shooting a black young male or whatever, George Zimmerman shooting a black young male, I always hear these famous words: "Don't rush to judgment." Soon as I hear that word, soon as I hear that sentence, it's over. It's over. They got this guy innocent, and that's it. I heard a commentator on one of those cable news shows, and they said, "Oh, why don't they show him? Why don't they show him when he's older? Why do they like this guy said?" So in other words, the older a black male gets, the more threatening he is. If they show him when he's a little boy at 10 years old or 12 years old, he's not threatening him.
Eric, you're on Lieberman Live. Go.
Hey, King. John, I hate to dispute the king of all blacks there, but unfortunately in New Jersey, it's a must-arrest state with a domestic violence. If any party, male or female, shows a sign of physical injury, you have no choice.
Absolutely.
Attorney General guidelines say you have to arrest. So if they don't want to testify, there's no option. You also are obligated to get the restraining order on behalf of the victim, which means you kick the violator out of the house so they can go home and be safe.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Eric, is that your name, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. If you got a daughter, if you have a daughter, and she has a boyfriend or husband, and he beats her on a regular basis like he eats meat patties, he beats her when he comes home, he beats her when he goes. Do you ever, when she comes to your house for Thanksgiving, don't you sit her down and go, why are you still with him? Wouldn't you say that to her?
Well, as a law enforcement officer, I'd see to it that he was arrested immediately.
Yes, but your daughter will be mad at you.
She can be mad at me all she wants, but that's the law.
Yeah, but the reason why she will be mad at you is because she loves it.
Yeah, but King, this is Richard Roth. Here's the problem. You're assuming that each one of these women have loving and caring families. That's a huge assumption. A lot of these women don't have anywhere to go. Their kids are in the house.
That's different. That's different.
Well, you're jumping a little.
And Eric, thank you for your service, and thank you for clarifying what happens in New Jersey. Nancy in Orlando, you're on with Lieberman Live. Go. Nancy.
Hello?
She's getting beat up. No.
King. Ed, was that you?
No. What was me?
Did you want to chime in, Ed? I don't know where Nancy is.
I say, John, you think Jody was afraid to leave her attacker?
No, she wasn't afraid.
Jody Arias?
Yeah.
Jody stayed and pursued her boyfriend. He was trying to get rid of her. She stayed, and then she subsequently stabbed him 27 times, slashed him from ear to ear, and brutally murdered him, and then lied about it, and is now looking at the death penalty. It's a completely different case. Tim in Boston, you're on Lieberman Live. Tim.
Exactly.
Hey, I'm just sitting there listening, and I can't even. I'm getting sick listening to King of All Blacks. I actually like him a lot, but his opinion on this is just ridiculous. That women love to be beat.
No, I didn't
love everything about it. I mean, it's really nauseating.
Come on. Listen to me. Let me tell you something, man. People could twist what I'm saying all that they want, but you always say in the back of your mind. You don't have to tell me. I already know. You say in the back of your mind, you see this pretty girl with a black eye, and she's been with this guy for 7 years. I know goddamn well that you say in your head, what the hell is she staying with him for? And I'll be right there to answer you.
Guys, we will update everybody on the status of the George Zimmerman case as things progress in this hour. But right now, I want to switch gears for a moment and have a debate on the death penalty. A lot of new developments in different states nationwide. In the last 6 years, 6 states have ended the death penalty completely. That brings to the total 18 nationwide. Earlier this year, North Carolina and Florida passed laws designed to shorten the length of time between conviction and execution. We went around and got some thoughts from the staff, and pretty much actually Scott the engineer's thoughts, summed up what a lot of people around here thought. Listen.
You want to get rid of these people that are slimes and they just don't give up and they just keep doing shit. Then again, you see all these mistakes in the justice system where people are convicted that are innocent and put to death or on death row. So it's really a tough call.
Richard Roth, let me ask you this. 60% of Americans still favor the death penalty, but that's actually the lowest level it's been since 1972. What do you make of that?
So the death penalty is a very political issue. It's a very charged issue. There are many people both on the right and left side of the column that just feel very strong either should or should not exist. At the end of the day, there are 3 reasons why it shouldn't exist, even though I'm going to probably take something for this. First of all, number one is it's not a deterrent. The states that have the death penalty have the highest murder rate. Let me say it again. In 2008 to 2012, the death penalty states are in the 4.7 to 5.2% range, and if you go to the non-death penalty states, they're 2.8 to 3.7. So let's say it again. If in fact you have a death penalty, it's not deterring. Number 2, and this is probably the reason why Florida is shortening that their statute. 143 people have been released from death row with evidence of their innocence. If you're charring one defendant when they should have been released, that is a monstrous mistake.
Yeah, and since 1989, asked Napkin Ed, 1,241 people have been wrongly convicted and then later cleared of all charges. What do you make of that, Ed?
It's friendly fire. If it happens, they're not supposed to get it. It's called friendly fire or collateral damage, however you want to word it.
Are you saying, if I'm hearing you right, Ed, you're saying that no matter how many people are wrongly convicted, as long as some are correctly convicted and put to death, you don't have a problem with those who are wrongly convicted?
Yeah, because it's like a medical malpractice.
That's asinine.
How is it like medical malpractice?
People die from that sometimes.
But how is that in any way on the same level as putting somebody to death for a crime they didn't commit?
They use medications to do it now. They don't do the electric chair. It's a medical issue.
Yes, but you're suggesting that somehow it's a mistake, that when somebody is put to death and executed, you're equating that with medical malpractice, meaning that somehow the drugs administered were the wrong drugs. That's not the issue.
No, the mistake was finding them guilty if they're innocent. That happens. There's mistakes all the time.
If you, Ass Napkin Ed, were charged with a crime that you truly didn't commit and you were put on death row, you wouldn't be outraged? You would say that's okay because those who did commit similar crimes should be put to death?
I'd appeal it, but that's all you can do is appeal it. But they got these chemicals now that doesn't really hurt if they give it to you like the electric chair did. The chemicals they put into you don't hurt.
So you're saying if you were put to death, you would prefer this cocktail of drugs, which in fact, it's a whole other issue, but many states are running out of it. There was a big New York Times piece. Maybe we'll get into that. But you're suggesting that you would be okay to die for a crime that you did not commit if you were given the cocktail of drugs and that was painless.
Yeah, but first I'd appeal it.
Come on. He's just saying that because it's not really going to happen to him. Those type of questions of people. Would if it happened to you? They're not saying it because it's not happening to them. The problem with the death penalty is I believe in the death penalty, and I believe in the death penalty for people that commit crimes against children. That is the worst form of human shit that I've ever seen. If I was a judge,
that's a mistake too. That could have been a mistake. Go ahead.
If I was a judge, I will give somebody the death penalty for having sex with little kids or murdering little kids. But some of these crimes or murders that people are on death row for is actually for murders that happened, drug offenses. So maybe the guy deserved it. Or it was like gang-related and all of this stuff. I wouldn't give people a death penalty for that. I will find out what happened, case by case. Some guys are on the death penalty on death row because they came in the house and their wife was fucking somebody else. They went insane.
King, do you believe that the death penalty is applied unequally across the board based on racial makeup? In other words, do you believe black people are wrongly given the death penalty versus white people?
Absolutely. But I'm not one to always cry about it. It's just the fact of life. We are the lowest on the totem pole of humanity. It's not a dig against black people. That's how it is.
Richard, what do the statistics suggest about race of those executed?
So that's a really good question. Here's the bottom line. Of the people executed, 34%, that's more than 1 in 3, are black, which, King, you would agree is not common of the communities in this country. So that's the first problem. The second problem, which is bigger than the first, is the race of the victim. So the race of the victim in a death penalty case, 76% of the time that a guy is convicted and actually is put to death, the person who died was white. Only 15% is the victim black. So unfortunately, the death penalty is race specific, and that's another reason why it's really not the best answer. If you're putting away more people because they killed a black person than killed a white person, that's a big problem.
Daryl in Baltimore, my hometown, you are on Lieberman Live. Go.
We're talking about the death penalty, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I want to say I agree with King, and I'm glad he keeping it 100 because black people are always on the bottom. Well, not always, but we are on the bottom of the totem pole. And, as far as you look at South Africa and America, there's more black people, from my understanding, incarcerated in those two countries. And I'm sure black people ain't doing more crimes than white folks because there's more white folks here than black folks. But,
Daryl, where do you stand on the death penalty?
I don't agree with it. I don't like it.
You don't think it deters crime in high crime areas like your city of Baltimore?
No, because if you're hungry, you're going to go what you got to do what you got to do to eat. I mean, when you go out here and commit a crime, you could die committing a crime, so why should the death penalty deter you?
Bob in Florida, you're on Lieberman Live. Bob.
I agree.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Hey, buddy.
As far as the death penalty, I don't see it as a white or black thing. The problem with the death penalty to the states that still have it, they don't use it quick enough. And the reason I say that, I'm talking about the people that are caught on videotape, caught with a smoking gun in their hand. They got 10 witnesses. Let's say a road rage incident. A guy gets out and shoots another driver. He's guilty of murder. There should not be no 20-year. The death penalty is not a deterrent because they don't use it fast enough. They know they're going to be sitting around for 20 years.
Well, Richard, that is a good point. If a case is so open and shut, and some are, you do this for a living, some are, then why not have the death penalty in those cases?
Because what happens is, in the death penalty cases, they become complicated because it is a death penalty case. There's a study done in 2011. California spent over $4 billion, with a B, since 1948 on the death penalty, including pretrial costs of automatic appeal, and habeas corpus costs. The additional cost of having an inmate on death row as opposed to a maximum security prison is $90,000 a year per inmate. So what you're doing is you're significantly increasing the cost because they want to make sure they get it right. So you're right that it is a much, much more complicated, more expensive, more comprehensive problem when you have a death penalty case.
Jackie in New Jersey, you're on Lieberman Live. Jackie.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Jackie.
I think he might have touched the last caller, but I think you guys are focusing more on the people who are innocent. And I believe that most of them are being let out now because of DNA. So DNA feature has a lot to do with being wrongly convicted.
Well, DNA has everything to do with exonerating those who are sitting on death row for crimes they haven't committed. Absolutely. But DNA, let me point out, King, and then we'll go to you. DNA has also put a hell of a lot of criminals behind bars who were walking free because their DNA has now been matched to crime scenes, especially in rapes. King.
Yeah, so is the young lady still on the phone?
She is.
All right, it shouldn't sound so young, but I just wanted to ask her a question. If I'm just playing with you, baby. Listen, I just want to go back to, because it really bugs me. Do you agree that if a woman gets hit more than 7 times and stays with the guy, can't you tell me honestly that she loves the guy? I don't get it.
Sure, what that has to do with the death penalty, what your question.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. King keeps coming back to that. I need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk for a couple more minutes about the death penalty because the phones are jammed. We'll keep our panel here.